Okay, here I am at the National Botanic Garden of Wales, and I'm going to be doing some on plein air painting tutorials and some quick tip videos at this beautiful spot in West Wales. I hope you can make it down here at some point. It's a beautiful day out, amazing gardens, lots to see, and the Regency Restoration Project, which is open for its first year at the moment. So come and have a look at my tutorials and maybe learn a few things. Okay, bye for now. So I found myself a really nice, quiet, shady spot because it's quite warm today, and I'm going to paint one of the bridges, the newly restored bridges and new bridges here at the Botanic Gardens on the newly restored lakes, and then later on I'm going to go deep into the woods and I'm going to paint one of the waterfalls. So I'll just show you a quick snap of what I'm going to paint now. So here's one of the newly restored lakes, and it's absolutely stunning, and here's the bridge we're going to paint today. Okay, so if you like, you can take a screenshot and paint it in your own time, or you can just watch me and then paint the result at the end. Okay, here we are set up. Just for your information, I'm using Artesa's watercolour books. They're very good because they've got lots of pages in them, and they've also got a strap so you can flip your work over and then strap it down so it doesn't blow around in the wind, because that's one of the main issues with drawing and painting outside. I'm going to paint across the entire length of 2 pages here, just to give you a panoramic, what is called a panoramic landscape. And I'm going to paint the bridge. So I'm just going to roughly plan where to put the bridge. So I'm going to put the bridge about here. I want the water level to be above the midline of the paper, just for a composition. So I'm going to put the water level about there, and then the bridge will come up out of that. And obviously you need to keep looking at your landscape and make sure that your horizon is, your water level or horizon line is straight, and then that the subject that you're looking at is the right size. So we've got these 2 archways, so I'm just going to roughly put those in. The archway that's closer to me, I mean, it's pretty much straight on, but the one that's closer to me will be slightly wider than the one that's further away. So there we have the 2 arches. Just really roughly put them in. You don't have to go into enormous amounts of detail because it's quite a long way away. I mean, you might choose to, when you print off this image, you might choose to make it bigger, closer, but that's up to you. So the water level goes through the bridge and comes out the other side. So the main pillar in the centre would be slightly lower and in the water, and then we've got the pillar on the other side that comes down to the water line only. So that would be in the water, and that is just above the water line. And then we can just about see a little bit of the distant walkway down, and then we've got a tree coming up. You might hear voices in the background because there's people wandering past all the time. We've got some foliage in the distance, and we've got a couple of trees, but I'm just going to leave the distance again quite simple. As we go along here, we've got more trees. There might be, well, I might bring a bit of sky down just to feed into that distant structure, and then we've got all the tree line coming along. Now, directly in front of me, I have a branch, and it's on my side of the lake. So it comes across and it drops down here like this. And one of the reasons why I chose this situation to paint in was because of this branch. And this branch is sort of framing the picture. So I'm going to include it in my picture. So, and it just, again, it makes for a more interesting composition. And then also, just down below that, there are trees. They're probably the tops of bushes that, because this lake has recently been flooded. And some of the trees that have ended up in the water are still growing on the edges of the lake, and they have foliage on top of them, so I'm going to include those as well. And then just to my left here is a big tree. It's a beech tree, so I'm going to include that also in the picture, and it has a V formation, so that will give you some idea of scale in the image. Okay, so I'm just going to leave the drawing like that. You can see it's stretching across the two pictures there, the two pages should I say. Okay, I'm going to prepare my paints. Okay, so here I have a very small set, a travel set, and it's a Winsor & Newton watercolour travel set. They're very cheap, you can buy them in any art stores. You can see the colours. I've made myself a colour guide, which I've just laminated, and I put it inside here, keep it in there. So I've got leaf green, viridian, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, cerulean blue, cadmium red, white, burnt umber, indigo, cadmium yellow, and ultramarine blue. I mean, you really don't need any more than this. I have a dot of Payne's grey in the corner here, and that's just because I like Payne's grey. Okay, so that's the basic colours that I've brought with me today. Obviously, you just work with what you've got. I've got a selection of brushes, including some round brushes and fan brushes and a Chinese brush, a rigger brush and a detail brush. Okay, again, that's all you should really need. And if you haven't got all of those, please don't worry, because I'm probably only going to use a couple of them anyway. The next thing is I've got a water pot and a rag, just in case I make any mistakes. So the first thing to go in, you normally work light to dark with watercolour. That's mainly because you can't replace colours. Unlike acrylic, you can paint over things and it's much more flexible. But with this, it really isn't. So we tend to work light to dark. I've got some green ready mixed there. It's just some sap green. I'm going to take some yellow and I'm going to add the cadmium yellow to the sap green, just to make it a little bit more vibrant. And I'm going to add quite a lot of water in there, and I'm just going to touch. So just to explain, this project here is literally just to record what's going on. I also take photographs as I'm going along, especially because the light changes so much. But really, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to capture the atmosphere, the sensation of being in the landscape, and the colours really. You know, I will then go back to the studio and use this information that I've collected to create a painting. So really this is just like a record of what has been happening today. in the landscape. And as a result, it's going to be a very loose image. So it's not for you to, I mean, you know, you might like loose imagery anyway. I really like loose, very quick paintings. But if you wanted to go into detail, you could add more and more as you go along. I mean, I'm limited by the fact that I've got a small sketchbook here. But also, I don't know what's going to happen as I'm painting. It might start raining. So I'm just mixing a little bit of darker green and a bit of brown here, just to give some variety in the tones of greens that I'm using. I'm looking in the distance here and I'm trying to pick out darker areas where the trees are joining together. And I can see that there's a very bright yellow just over there, like this. I'm just going in different angles, using my brush at different angles. I'm using the length of the brush and I'm using the tip of the brush, and I'm just putting in some very basic detail. Now, I want to leave this area fairly clear because I want this bridge to stand out. So I'm doing that on purpose. I'm quite happy with the amount of green I've got in there. So now I'm going to work on to my blues. Now, this is the water. Okay, so I'm just using a cobalt blue here. Now, as I was going back to what I was saying, I am limited by the size of the sketchbook that I'm working on, and the time and the weather and the comfort of where I'm working. So, you know, take all of those things into consideration when you're working. Try and make yourself as comfortable as possible. I'm sitting on an artist's set here, which is like a stool and a rucksack combination. So I'm quite comfortable. You could be working on the floor, which wouldn't be as comfortable. But at the moment I'm all right, and it's not going to rain. So I'm pretty confident that I'll get quite a lot of information in here before anything disastrous happens. So now to go back to the painting, I've got a reflection of the actual bridge here in the water. I've also got a reflection of the walkway up to it. So I'm going to paint around the bridge shape in the water. I'm going to try and paint around it. So it goes like this and like this. And it also has the central structure, which comes down like that. So I know that I can bring, there's also a little bit of reflection over there, but I'll deal with that later. I know I can bring that down into there, like that. And then I can get away with putting the water everywhere else, like that. So I'm just going to add, I'm only adding water here now. I'm just going to re-wet the entire surface, and I'm going to drop some colour in. But the one of the things that I need to do while I'm here is just quickly put in some green along this area here. So I'm just going to take some of that green colour, I'm just going to drop it in just under there, so I can get some form of reflection coming off that bank in the distance. Same over here. I'm just going to wet the paper, and then I'm going to put the green in the water coming down from those trees, and alongside it add that blue. So it's really just a matter of going in very loosely again and just adding streaks of colour and green where you need it. Like that. Very loose again, like I said. Now, so up here we've got some strong green coming off that bank. Up here, like that. Which is what you're seeing reflected in the water. So to make it a bit stronger, I'm just going to put some, now that the paint has dried a little, it won't move as much. Put that strip back in. And then there's a brown edge between the grass bank and the reflection. I'm just going to pop that in. I might need to make that stronger. Okay, then we've got some more. Oh, you can see why I need that clip. Okay, the breeze is just getting up a little bit. This is, like I said, problems of painting outside. So just try and get some action in the water that goes across the pages. You can see I'm not stopping, I'm going across the page and I'm continuing with those lines over to the left hand side. Okay, so before it dries off, I'm just going to put some extra greens in the water. So where it comes down like that, just pop in some of those greens coming down. Again, do it broken. Remember, it's in the water, so it doesn't need to be perfect. It's just a suggestion of what's above. Also, I can see that there are some yellow bases to these trees. So I'm just going to pop in a little bit of yellow, and there's a fly just come to say hello. Don't know whether you can see that. There you go. This is another problem. Look at that, landing on my palette. It's checking out the colours. So again, you need to reflect that in the water. So put that underneath as well as on top. Again, you're just picking up these atmospheric details in those little marks that you're making. I'm going to put some darker green. I'm only going to add, you can either add blue or brown to your colours just to get some darker tones in. I'm just going to add some darker areas just in a couple of spots, just to break up that. Imagine that you're painting around those trees. You're putting in the shadows in those areas. Okay, again, you can look into the distance and just put in some extra bits if you feel like you need some extra detail like that. Okay, now, so the next thing I'll do is I'm going to paint the main branching. You need to wait for this to dry really, but I'm going to go for it because I'm painting outside. I need to get things done quickly. So I'm just going to, first of all, paint my birch tree, and I'm just going to do this really simply again, but because it's close to you, you need to really put in a little bit more detail than it would be if it was further away from you. So go in with the water again. There's the edge. There's such a lot of people here today. It's, like I said, it's the first summer for the Regency restoration project. So there's a lot of very eager visitors to have a look at what they've been doing, what they've been spending the money on here at the Botanic Gardens. I know that there's 2 waterfalls being restored, several bridges. So there's the tree. You can again go into more detail, maybe at home or now, depending on what the weather's like. But I want to get this tree in here before anything changes. So I'm just going to loosely, now this is still wet. I can see it's still wet because it's shiny. So I'm probably going to avoid that bit. I can paint down to about there without any risk of anything happening, but I'm not going to paint any further. There's also a couple of trees just in the distance here. I'm just going to put them in very, very lightly so that I don't make them come forward. If you put them in too dark, then you would make them come forward on you. So just be careful of that. Again, I'm just going to bring that out a touch. Right, so now the bridge. I need to put the brickwork in first. So the brickwork sort of comes there, down to there, and under there like that. Again, because it's so far away, you can really get away with painting this very simply. If it was closer, if I was closer to it, then it would be a different story. And here we have the reflection in the water, slightly elongated because it's midday, late, moving into the afternoon, so we would have a slightly elongated shadow, and the shadow would come down the side of that into there, and again slightly elongated in the water, again under here. And you can actually see the underneath of the bridge. So you can paint a little bit of the underneath in. I actually need a slightly darker on this side, so I'm going to put that in. You can see the underneath of the bridge there and the side. And you can see a touch of shadow coming through on that side, but not much. Right, so I think that's about as much detail as I want to go into on the bridge, on the brickwork of the bridge that is, but I do need to put in some green just in this area here, coming down and into the water. I'm just going to strengthen that up a bit just to bring it out, and again just spread it into the water. If it looks a bit hard, just spread it around with a bit of water. So now what do we do with our bridge? So the bridge is actually, it's like a silver colour. So to achieve that, you would probably just use a little bit of blue. So use a fine brush with a point and just paint in the base like this. There's a sort of thick base on it, and then you can put some vertical marks on it. There's no way that I would attempt to paint anything other than that, really. I might go back in later on in the day and just put in some details into this reflection area, just to bring out the reflection a bit more. But because I can't see it properly, I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, now I noticed that I've got a bank in the distance, so I'm going to put a little green flash just coming through there like that, just to bring out that bank and to make your eye go through. And I'm going to also just bring in just a touch of Payne's Grey into that bridge. I'm just going to knock it back a bit because I've got a bit too much of it on my brush. So here and there I'm just going to put some little tiny verticals like that, just in that area, just to reflect what's going on. They might be a bit green, so I might have to lift them off later. Okay, so what have I missed? Right, I haven't got a reflection of this tree in the water, so I need to put it in. So this tree would come down like that. Again, put your colour down and then add water to it to just soften it down a bit. That would disappear off as it comes into the water. I'm just going to put some more reflections just coming in here of some detail. Oh, and I also need to just add this in because I haven't, it should be more or less dry. It's not too bad. So I'm just going to pop in the upper branch that I missed out before because it was still too wet. Make it a gnarly branch just for interest. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is just pop in these foreground trees. Now, if you have got one, then a great brush to use is one of these rigger brushes, which is a long, thin brush. I'm not sure whether this is too thick actually. They're used for sign writing. That's what they were designed for, but obviously they're really good for painting fine lines on branches and things like that, grasses. So I'm just going to pop some of those in just down here, and all that'll do is it'll just bring the focus back to the foreground and make you look with your eyes around what's going on. Okay, so just a few branches. Twist the brush around in your hand so you get some thick and thin branches. I'll have them projecting out of the water. And if you can put a little flick on at the end like that, then all the better for it. So there's a few. Don't go overboard with that. I'm just going to put a few down here. I have to work around my camera, which is just right in front of me. So I find it a bit difficult to get my brush in sometimes underneath the camera. So these trees are growing up out of the water, so you would only see the bottom bit. And then the last thing to do is just to place some green leaves on those, and I'm going to add some yellow into that green just to make it really vibrant. And I'm just going to dot some, again, just do it really loose. Change your brush around. Don't put too many on. These are sort of, I think they're probably willow or something. So, you know, they wouldn't have a great deal. And also because they're growing out of the water, they haven't got as many leaves on as they would normally have. So just rotate your brush around. You can put this on with another brush if you want to. Okay, so there we go. I'd probably leave it there. If anything, I might let it dry off and then add some more darks into the work. Okay, you could even take a pencil or even a pen and just add. I will probably put some lines coming across the water, but I don't want to do that until it's completely dry. I might add some further leaves, but that's about it for this one. I will take it back and finish it and put a finished image on at the end of this video tutorial. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Remember, get out while you can. It's summer, it's warm, there's some beautiful places to paint, and it's very therapeutic. Okay, bye for now.